Today we start a new worship theme, which is called Better Together, where our goal is to examine areas in our life, in our church, and in our world where we are better together. Today in this gospel reading from John, Jesus asks us again and again, I ask you, Jesus says, to be one. I ask you to be together. I ask you to care for one another. I ask you to be one church. Jesus tells us today, I ask you to be one church. How well do we live into this command? How are we doing at that? If we look around in our world, what's it like to be told, I want you to be together because you are better together? It seems that churches in particular just find this about impossible to work together. Why is that? I can almost guarantee that each of you have had an experience in your life where someone has told you, we can't be friends because you are of a different faith. We can't even be family together because you go to the wrong church. This happens more and more frequently, and it's a common phrase, but it says in the United States that Sunday is the most segregated hour of the week. Why is that when church says, today, Jesus tells us, I want you to be one. But yet every worshiping community feels like they're on an island, or they're separated from each other, or they have to do it on their own. It's a sad state that we're in, that families can't even talk to each other because religion, church, their faith has separated them. How did we get to this point where kids can't even play together because some believe not in better together, but in better alone? So if we're going to talk about being better together, we have to talk about the flip side, which is loneliness. I think today in our world we're facing what I would say is a loneliness epidemic. People are feeling so lonely and isolated and separated from each other. Today, I just want you to consider the ways that you might feel lonely. How do you feel isolated? Do you have a community that supports you, that you can rely on, that you can go to? Have you ever felt like you were unwanted in a group? Have you ever felt isolated or excluded? I would guarantee all of you have felt this way at one point or another in your life. Now, there are 3 quotes that I want to share. The first one is from Mother Teresa, and she says, loneliness and the feeling of being unwanted is the most terrible poverty. Loneliness and the feeling of being unwanted is the most terrible poverty. An author, Jodi Picoult, says, if you meet a loner, no matter what they tell you, it's not because they enjoy solitude. It's because they have tried to blend into the world before, and people continue to disappoint them. Wow. They have been rejected. They have been disappointed, and they say, it's just not worth it anymore. Or, Audrey Hepburn, actress, said, when you have nobody you can make a cup of tea for, when nobody needs you, that's when I think life is over. It doesn't matter your age, your sex, your gender, your race, your economic status, your political beliefs. We can all feel lonely and isolated. And I bet each of you have felt this way at times in your life. Maybe you feel lonely and isolated today. So what is the church? What are we as a community of God? How can we help this situation? What are we supposed to do? And how can faith lead us to somewhere healthier? So we can start with the simple fact that Jesus today wants us to be together. Jesus commands us, tells us in John 17, I ask not only on behalf of these, but also on behalf of those who will believe in me through their word, that they may all be one. That they may all be one. Jesus asks us to be one body in faith. Before this week, I did not connect this command, or I did not connect this with a direct command from Jesus. Now, you know the commands that Jesus shares with us. These are instilled in our hearts and in our minds. We know them well. Love one another as you love yourself. The golden commandment, the golden rule. This is my body, written in stone, given and shed for you for the remission or forgiveness of sin. Do this in remembrance of me. We will celebrate this command today. When you pray, pray in this way. Our Father. So we have these, you just know them. We know these commands. God, or Jesus says, feed God's people. Forgive not 7 times, but how many times? 77. 7 times, 77 times. Blessed are the poor. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are the merciful. We even have 10 commandments that we are given to say, here are the commands from God. So I would say today, this is maybe the 11th commandment. Jesus asks us to be one. The command of better together really stood out to me as we start this summer worship series. We join our modern worship with our sanctuary worship, and we become one church. Of course, it's hard giving up something that we love, a particular style, a particular community, a table that we sit at with friends around us. There's always compromise when it means being together. There are always hurdles to overcome. But today Jesus asks us, Jesus commands us, faith is better together. So a few slides on the flip side. So we have how painful loneliness can be. And then we have how powerful being together can be. Mother Teresa said, I can do things you cannot. You can do things I cannot. Together we can do great things. Pretty powerful. Henry Ford said, coming together is a beginning. Staying together is a progress, and working together is a success. You can see that the beginning is just being together. And it takes a lifetime of working through what does that mean. Martin Luther King said, we may have all come on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. Wow. And finally, what we heard from our children's message today, this is an African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Today, I conclude with an observation from our reading from Acts today, because I think this story summarizes what it means to be better together in a really powerful and helpful way. So, if you can this week, I would take the bulletin home and reread this story, because there's a lot in there. We don't have enough time to go through point by point every portion of it, but reread it and see for yourself how God's community is better together. What does that look like? What does that mean? What are they doing? How is this lived out in action? So first we have a slave girl who is given freedom and new life because Jesus, working through these two people, Paul and Silas, notices that she is being taken advantage of. Paul and Silas say, this is not right. You shouldn't be treating this slave girl like this. She is being used for profit. She is not being compensated. And they say in God's kingdom, this is wrong. Paul and Silas, what do? They set her free. And what is faith other than giving freedom and new life to those who need it? Second, those that choose to exclude, those that want to exclude, who are they? Well, they're the slave owners, and they're the city leaders, the magistrates, the leaders of that city, because they're not served by a faith of better together. So they put Paul and Silas immediately in jail. You can't be doing this. In our city, we're going to put you in jail because that's not how things operate here. Third, even in jail, Paul and Silas live out this faith of being better together. They have compassion on the jailer, amazingly enough. And what do for the jailer? They offer the jailer freedom and new life. And when you read it, listen to what the jailer says and how God is at work in these miraculous ways. Finally, better together is about seeing God in all people and welcoming anyone and everyone into God's kingdom. That is not easy. Think back to the beginning of this message where we talked about isolation and how you have probably been excluded from gatherings. You have probably been left out off of a party invite list, or you haven't been invited to a church community. This is hard, messy work. But this is the work of God. Today, we are called to be better together. And what does Jesus command us? You are now one. We are one people. It's easy to forget that we are on our own, or we're isolated, or we're individual. We are trying to do things just by ourselves. But today, Jesus says, you are now one people. You are now my people. Thanks be to God. Amen.